The call came on a bitterly cold Christmas Eve, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and stays there, a deep ache that no amount of warmth seems to reach. I saw my daughter, my Sofia, shivering on the porch in nothing but a thin sweater, her teeth chattering as the temperature dipped to 25 degrees Fahrenheit. The sight of her so small and broken against the grand facade of the house sent a crack straight through my heart. Through the large bay window, her in-laws were gathered around a roaring fire, glasses of champagne in hand, their laughter echoing into the night, a cruel soundtrack to my daughter's suffering. I didn't knock. I pushed the door open, the weight of it feeling like everything I was pushing against in that moment, gathered my girl into my arms, and faced them. "I'm taking her home," I said, my voice shaking with a rage I had never known, a tremor that came from a place so deep and primal it scared me. If you've ever had your heart shattered by the people who were supposed to be family, you understand why I'm sharing this. If you want to hear more stories about finding strength in the darkest moments, subscribe to this channel and stay with me. Your courage might be the inspiration someone else needs. This wasn't how the night was supposed to go. I had driven for hours through a worsening snowstorm to surprise Sofia for Christmas, my knuckles white on the steering wheel as I navigated the slick, dark roads. I'd left my yoga studio in Denver early, the memories of a busy week of teaching still clinging to me like the scent of lavender and sweat. My SUV was packed with gifts, a freshly baked pecan pie that now felt foolishly sentimental, and a heart so full of excitement it was practically bursting. I had pictured Sofia's face when she saw me, the wide smile, the happy tears, the way her entire being would light up. She was my only child, my light, and after losing her father 5 years ago, we had clung to each other through every storm, our bond a lifeline in a world that often felt uncertain. The house in the affluent Chicago suburb was exactly as I remembered it from my last visit. A large modern structure with meticulous landscaping, now buried under a pristine blanket of snow that glittered under the streetlights like a scene from a postcard. No footprints marred the path to the front door, a detail that only later would strike me as profoundly telling. As I approached, I could hear the cheerful, tinny strains of White Christmas playing from inside, a melody that usually filled me with joy, but now felt like a mockery. Through the window, I saw the grand living room, a tableau of perfect, curated wealth. A massive Christmas tree twinkled with gold and red ornaments, and a long table was laden with a feast, a glazed ham studded with cloves, scalloped potatoes, bubbling in a ceramic dish, green bean casserole with a crispy fried onion topping, and a crystal bowl of punch that caught the light and threw ruby reflections across the ceiling. My son-in-law Alex stood with his parents, Charles and Diana, and his sister Brittany. They were raising their glasses in a toast, their faces flushed with cheer and good wine, their smiles easy and unburdened. But where was Sofia? A faint sound, a whimper swallowed by the wind, drew my attention to the porch. There, huddled on a wrought iron bench that must have been freezing to the touch, was my daughter. She wore only a light cashmere sweater and jeans, no coat, no boots, as if she had been banished in haste. Her arms were wrapped around herself, and her entire body was trembling violently, a continuous, helpless shudder. Her hair was damp from the falling snow, dark strands plastered to her forehead, and her face was pale and streaked with tears that had frozen on her cheeks. "Sofia!" I cried, my voice cracking as I rushed to her. I shrugged off my heavy winter coat, the one she'd bought me 2 Christmases ago, and wrapped it around her, pulling her close. Her skin was ice cold, the chill of it seeping through her sweater and into my own skin. "Mom?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, a thread of sound. "You're here?" She collapsed against me, her sobs a ragged, broken thing that tore at the very fabric of me. I held her tight, my own tears freezing on my cheeks. I'm here, baby. I'm here. I looked through the window at the scene inside, at the fire that crackled so invitingly, at the steam rising from the feast. They were laughing, completely, oblivious, or perhaps willfully ignorant, to the suffering on their own porch. Rage, hot and sharp, replaced the cold in my veins, a fire that burned away any doubt about what I had to do. I helped Sofia to my SUV, my arm a firm brace around her waist, her weight worryingly light against me. I started the engine and blasted the heat, directing all the vents toward her. As I fastened her seat belt, my fingers brushing against the icy metal of the buckle, I noticed a crumpled piece of paper on the floor of her car, which was parked nearby. It was a receipt from the Willow Spa, dated December 23rd, for a couple's massage, $520. Transaction touches 7391. Alex had told Sofia he was working late that night. My hands clenched the steering wheel, the leather groaning in protest. This was my first piece of proof, a small, tangible lie in a web of deception that I was only beginning to unravel. The drive to my rented apartment in the city was silent, except for Sofia's quiet weeping, a sound that seemed to fill the entire car, each sob a testament to a pain I had failed to see. I replayed the last few months in my head, the phone calls that had grown shorter, Sofia's voice often flat and distant, the vibrant energy I loved so much seeming to drain away. She'd blamed stress from her job as a graphic designer, but now I knew better. I remembered a visit 3 months ago when I'd seen Diana, Alex's mother, criticize Sofia's cooking, her voice a sweetly poisoned dart. A wife should know, and how to prepare a proper meal, she'd said, her smile not reaching her eyes as she pushed the roasted vegetables around her plate with disdain. At the time, I dismissed it as typical mother-in-law tension, a mistake that now filled me with a gut-wrenching guilt. How could I have been so blind? My name is Anya Petrova. I'm 58 years old, a widow, and the owner of a successful yoga studio. I've always prided myself on my strength, both physical and mental, on my ability to find center and balance no matter the storm. But seeing my daughter broken and neglected tested me in ways I never imagined, shaking the very foundations of who I thought I was. Sofia had always been a vibrant, creative soul, her laughter like wind chimes. She'd met Alex in college, and I thought he was a charming, ambitious man. He came from old money, his family well established in Chicago society, and I'd been happy for her, believing she was building a beautiful, secure life. Now, I saw the cracks in the foundation, the rot that had been spreading beneath the surface of their picture-perfect marriage. Once we were in my apartment, I settled Sofia on the couch, tucking blankets around her as if I could swaddle her from the world. The place was small but cozy, with soft lighting and the scent of sandalwood from my diffuser, a haven I had built for myself. Sofia clung to the mug of sweet, hot tea I made her, her hands shaking so badly the liquid sloshed precariously. They said I was ruining Christmas, she whispered, her gaze fixed on some distant, painful point. That I was too sensitive, that I should just get over it. Get over what? I asked gently, sitting beside her, my own heart hammering. She looked at me, her eyes hollow, the bright green I loved so much now dull and lifeless. The miscarriage, Mom. I lost the baby 2 months ago. I didn't tell you because they said it was my fault, that I worked too hard, that I didn't take care of myself. She broke down again, the words tearing out of her between sobs, and I held her, my heart shattering into a million pieces. A miscarriage, and they had blamed her. The injustice of it was a physical blow. That night, after Sofia fell into an exhausted sleep, the silence of the apartment felt heavy, oppressive. I scrolled through my phone, the blue light harsh in the dark room. I found a series of text messages from Alex over the past weeks. They were cold, dismissive, each one a carefully aimed arrow. "You need to stop wallowing, Sofia. It's embarrassing. My mother is right. You're not trying hard enough to be part of this family." Each message was a knife wound. I took screenshots of everyone, my fingers moving with a grim determination. This was my evidence, my digital paper trail, the first steps on a path I never wanted to walk. The next morning, Christmas Day, I confronted Alex over the phone. The scent of the uneaten pecan pie still lingered in the air, a sickly, sweet reminder of the celebration that never was. His voice was laced with a condescension that made my skin crawl. "Anya, you're overreacting. Sofia is dramatic. She wanted some air, that's all. We were about to call her in." "In 25-degree weather? Without a coat?" I snapped, my grip on the phone so tight I feared the plastic would crack. He sighed, a long, weary sound as if dealing with a difficult child. "This is between me and my wife. You've always coddled her. Maybe if you'd let her grow up, she wouldn't fall apart at every little thing." His words were calculated to hurt, to diminish, and they did. But they also solidified my resolve, hardening it into something unbreakable. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was emotional abuse, a systematic dismantling of my daughter's spirit. I knew I needed help. I called an old friend, Marcus, a lawyer who had helped me with my studio's legal matters. I told him everything, my voice shaking as I recounted the scene on the porch, sending him the screenshots and the spa receipt. "Anya, this is tough," he said, his tone grave. "Emotional abuse is hard to prove, and the Covingtons have resources, connections. But we can try for a divorce and argue for financial support." The days that followed were a blur of activity, a strange, painful counterpoint to the usual peace of the holiday season. I took Sofia to a therapist, Dr. Evans, whose office smelled of old books and lemongrass. She diagnosed Sofia with severe depression and anxiety, exacerbated by the miscarriage and the toxic environment at home. "She needs stability and unconditional support," Dr. Evans told me, her kind eyes full of empathy. I was determined to provide it, to become the anchor she so desperately needed. Sofia moved in with me permanently. I converted my second bedroom into a studio for her, filling it with her art supplies and favorite books, trying to create a space where her creativity could breathe again. Slowly, with therapy and time, she began to emerge from the fog. She started sketching again, her hands steadying day by day, the lines on the paper becoming surer, more confident. But the Covingtons weren't done. A week after Christmas, I received a formal letter from their lawyer, the thick, expensive paper feeling like a threat in my hands. It demanded Sofia return to the marital home and threatened to freeze their joint accounts. It was a power move, designed to intimidate, to remind us of their reach. Instead, it ignited my fight, fanning the flames of my rage into a focused, burning purpose. I decided to take a small measure of control, a minor revenge that felt like reclaiming a piece of my power. Using the spa receipt, I called the Willow Spa and, posing as Diana, confirmed the appointment for two, Alex and a woman named Chloe. I didn't know who Chloe was, but the name was another piece of the puzzle, a shadowy figure in my son-in-law's double life. I logged into Sofia's social media account. She'd given me the password in a moment of shared frustration weeks ago, and found messages between Alex and Chloe, flirty and intimate, their digital intimacy a stark contrast to the coldness he showed his wife. I saved them all, each click of the mouse a quiet act of defiance. This was my minor revenge, gathering the stones that would build my case, weaponizing their own secrets against them. The legal battle began in earnest. Marcus filed for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences and emotional cruelty. The Covingtons responded with a team of high-priced attorneys, their names listed on a letterhead that screamed old money and influence. The first court hearing was a disaster. Their lawyer, a man with a slicked-back haircut and an expensive suit, painted Sofia as unstable and unreliable, using her depression against her as if it were a character flaw. Mrs. Petrova enables her daughter's fragile mental state, he argued, his voice smooth as oil. My client is a devoted husband who has been patient and understanding. Alex took the stand, his performance impeccable. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and his voice was a masterclass in false sincerity. I love Sofia, he said, looking directly at the judge, his eyes wide and earnest. But she's changed. She pushes everyone away. I didn't want to air our private struggles, but her mother has forced this. The lie was so seamless, so convincing that for a terrifying moment, I felt the ground shift beneath me. I sat there gripping Sofia's hand, feeling the injustice like a physical weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. The judge, an older man with a weary expression and glasses perched on the end of his nose, seemed swayed by Alex's charm and the Covington's stature. We left the courtroom that day with a temporary order granting Alex access to their home, but requiring him to provide spousal support. It was a partial victory, but it felt hollow, a bitter compromise that left the taste of ash in my mouth. The low point came when Diana confronted me outside the courthouse. Her perfume, something floral and expensive, clashing with the cold concrete smell of the building. "You're destroying your daughter's life, Anya," she said. Her voice a venomous whisper meant only for me. "She was lucky to marry into our family. You're just a struggling immigrant who never fit in. Know your place." Her words were meant to demean, to put me back in a box I had fought my whole life to escape. But they only reinforced why I had to fight. I was an immigrant, yes. I'd built my life from nothing after coming here from Russia at 20, with little more than a suitcase and a dream. My strength was earned, not inherited, and it was a strength she had profoundly underestimated. The climax of our story came not in a courtroom, but in the court of public opinion. Brittany, Alex's sister, made a fatal mistake. She posted a photo on Instagram of the family on a ski trip in Aspen, a trip taken the week after Sofia's miscarriage. The caption read, "Family is everything, so blessed." The comments section filled with questions about Sofia's absence. Brittany, in a moment of breathtaking carelessness, responded with a catty remark. "Some people can't handle the altitude." Sofia saw the post and broke down. But this time, her tears were of anger, not sadness, a heart-cleansing fire. "I'm done hiding," she said, her voice firm for the first time in months, a new steel in her spine. With my encouragement, she wrote a post of her own, a raw, honest account sharing her story of loss, neglect, and emotional abuse. She didn't name names, but the details were clear, the timeline damning. The response was overwhelming. Messages of support poured in from friends, acquaintances, and even strangers, a tidal wave of empathy that washed over us. The local news picked up the story, focusing on the issue of emotional abuse in high society marriages, shining a light into the dark corners the Covingtons had tried so hard to keep hidden. The Covingtons were horrified. Their pristine reputation was tarnished, the flawless image they cultivated now scratched and cracked. Charles, who sat on several charitable boards, found himself facing awkward questions at his club. Alex's law firm received complaints. The pressure mounted, the walls of their privileged world beginning to close in. They offered a settlement, a generous one. Sofia would get the house, a substantial alimony, and her share of their assets. In return, she would sign an NDA, a silencer on the truce. We consulted Marcus. "It's a good offer," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You may not get more in court, and this avoids a long, painful trial. It gives her a clean break." Sofia looked at me, her eyes clear for the first time in what felt like forever. "What do you think, Mom?" I took her hand, her skin warm and alive in mine. "This is your decision, my love, but know that no amount of money is worth your peace. If you want to fight, I'm with you. If you want to take this and build a new life, I'm with you then too." She chose to take the settlement. She wanted to close that chapter, to heal without the constant battle, to use the resources not as a payoff, but as a foundation. I supported her completely, my pride in her decision a bright warm light in my chest. The divorce was finalized on a bright spring day, the sun warming the earth, promising renewal. Sofia sold the house and used the money to start her own design business. She moved into a sunny apartment near my studio, and we saw each other almost every day, our relationship deepening in a way I hadn't thought possible. She continued therapy, and slowly, the light returned to her eyes, not the frantic, performative happiness of before, but a quieter, more resilient glow. I introduced her to a man I knew from my yoga community, a kind-hearted photographer named Liam, whose hands were always slightly stained with developer fluid. They started as friends, and their relationship grew naturally without pressure or manipulation, built on a foundation of mutual respect and affection. A year after the divorce, I heard Sofia laugh, a real, genuine, from-the-belly laugh at something Liam said, and I knew, with a certainty that settled my soul, that she was going to be okay. As for me, I learned that my strength wasn't just in my ability to fight, in the poses I could hold or the challenges I could face, but in my capacity to love unconditionally, to be a soft place for my daughter to fall. The image of Sofia shivering on that porch will never fully leave me, but it's now overshadowed by the memory of her standing tall in her new studio, directing her first big project, her voice confident and sure. The cold of the Christmas Eve has been replaced by the warmth of our rebuilt lives. We faced the darkness and found our way back to the light. Together, our bond not just repaired, but forged anew in fire. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever faced a betrayal that shook your world, I'd love to hear your experience in the comments below. Sharing our stories helps us heal and reminds us we're not alone. And if you want to join me for more journeys of resilience and renewal, subscribe to the channel. There's always another story waiting to be told.